Hello there, this is Lynn Reilly, author, licensed professional counselor, master energy therapist, and your host of Living Serendipitously. Today we are going to be talking about a very powerful practice of being honest and speaking the truth. Your truth. You know when you hold back and when you are not saying exactly how you feel, and you know there's a resistance there, and that's what we're going to be looking at today. And you also know those situations when you find out that someone has lied to you or has been holding back their feelings. And had you known what the truth was prior, things probably would have gone much smoother. That tends to really tick us off. We get really mad when we feel like someone is being dishonest, and becomes a quick trigger to distrust them and resent them. And you know why? You know why that bugs us as much as it does? Because most of us don't care for that part of ourselves that does the exact same thing. What about when it's you? You're the one that's being dishonest or holding back how you truly feel. Because let's get real here. How often do you honestly, directly, and respectfully share your true feelings to others? Do you tend to withhold to protect yourself? Or maybe you tend to hold back until you feel ready. Or maybe you wait until you feel forced into it. And then when you do, this huge relief comes over you when it's all out. And isn't that what we're looking for? That sense of authenticity, that sense of honesty, that sense of truth, of being okay with how you feel and who you are? Because that's it. This is why the practice of speaking the truth is so valuable. We want to feel good. We want to feel like we're being real. And we want to feel like being real is okay. So today we're going to be talking about why you do and why you don't, and how to change what doesn't feel good. You can learn more of these self-awareness practices and concepts in my working book, 30 Days to Me, which can be found on my website, livingwithserendipity.com, along with my children's book, The Secret to Beating the Dragon, as well as through sacredstoriesmedia.com. So let's get down to it. You have been holding on to some nagging feelings for a while now, and part of you knows that they're asking to be expressed, but you're too uncomfortable to share them. And when you're feeling this way, what do you typically do? Do you lie about whatever it is that you're thinking, or do you avoid talking and thinking about it altogether? Or maybe you drop small hints and hoping you'll be found out. Or maybe you change the entire direction of a conversation to avoid whatever it is that you want to really say. That's my personal go-to. But why? Let's look at why are you avoiding or withholding? Or why are you lying? Why are you not sharing what is practically creeping up your throat to be released? The answer? You probably already know what it is, because it's typically always the same stuff. It's fear. I know, it's always the fear, and it's true. You're scared of the unknown. What will happen if you share what you think? What will the response be? Typically, when we are facing a big unknown, we become really good at turning it into what we think is a known and speculating how it's all going to go down. And the majority of the time, it's way worse than the reality of what is going to happen. So let's just look at this fear of expressing yourself. Let's look at your truth. What are you actually afraid of? What do you think will happen if you share what you truly think and feel? What will happen if you tell the truth? Is it shame that's holding you back? Self-judgment of what you are thinking? Do you feel like your feelings are wrong, and since you are judging yourself so harshly, there is no way that someone else won't judge you harshly too? Or is it fear of rejection? If you share the truth, you will surely be rejected and looked at as wrong or trustworthy, or even worse, they will find out that you're not good enough, right? That's the ultimate feel. That part of us that doesn't feel good enough is vicious at times. But maybe that's not even it. Maybe you are concerned about being attacked as a response, and you're avoiding the repercussions of this. Maybe your history shows that when you speak up, that someone attacks you back, and that feels like you're not safe. But it all comes back to the same thing. It's still fear of something. And if you feel like you're going to be attacked, then there's that part of you that feels like you're not sure how to handle it. And so you avoid it because you feel like you're not going to be able to defend and protect yourself well. Of course, that's not true, but that's what you tell yourself. So what is it? What is scaring you the most? And what are you trying to avoid? So I'm a person who has very strong opinions and very strong beliefs, and I think about things a lot. I'm a very deep thinker, clearly. And not everybody is going to agree with what I think and what I say, and I know that. And in my professional life, back when I worked in the school system, I had long been practicing filtering and monitoring my views to meet the expectations of representing the public school system and its cultural beliefs. You know, it's pretty specific. It's not about my beliefs. It's about overall what other people's beliefs are. That's what I thought at the time. So I kept many of my personal beliefs and my opinions to a minimum. And as I began to dive more into my spiritual practices when I was working there, which included studying energy therapy, which I loved, I found myself really excited to share what I was learning, but I was holding back because I knew it would be frowned upon, as sharing my personal views was considered influencing others with beliefs that were not agreed upon. And I get it. It was not my role as a public servant. But what I never realized was how automatically I did this until I left that environment. I distinctly remember when I was just starting my private practice, I was walking into this networking dinner one night with other mental health therapists and psychiatrists, and hearing myself ask myself, so who are you going to be tonight? And I was actually taken back by that question because it was so habitual. And I was standing there. I remember I was standing there in the parking lot thinking, whoa, okay, well, who am I going to be? And then I heard myself answer, why don't you just be yourself? And that seemed like a crazy idea. But I assessed the risk of being judged and what that would mean. And it came down to, I was okay with that. Just enough to try on what it was going to feel like to authentically express myself and my views. Because I didn't feel like at that particular time I had anything to lose. And what an idea, right? So I moved through my fear of judgment and rejection, and I shared some very strong thoughts on my use and study of energy medicine, as well as my deep concerns with readily medicating children whose hormonal systems were already altering their moods. That drives me crazy. I've had such strong concerns around this. And I just really wanted to share it. And so I was having this really in-depth discussion with an Ivy League trained psychiatrist and professor who taught at the same Ivy League school. And what surprised me most in our discussion was that my views were very well received. So automatically I'm thinking, okay, this guy's really smart. He's really well practiced. He's been a professional for years. You know, he teaches this stuff. And he's listening to me as if what I said had value and was interesting. And I was completely shocked by that. I was so shocked with how well it went down and how comfortable I felt sharing what felt right for me and also what I believe would benefit others, because that really was my intent. It was an excellent opportunity and reminder that what I fear will happen rarely ever does. My beliefs and ideas were well received, and they may have positively influenced some other mental health professionals in some really good ways. And what's interesting is I used to see myself as pretty unimpressive about sharing myself honestly, but in retrospect, I don't know if anyone would ever actually say that about me. I seem to often be sharing my viewpoints regularly. But when it comes to interpersonal relationships, and I felt threatened in any way, I would clam right up. Because when it came to sharing ideas and thoughts and visions, that felt safe. But sharing those deeper emotions and becoming vulnerable, that was definitely not my strong suit. And it's like a totally different ball game. I had this long-standing fear of abandonment based on my childhood and the relationship I had with my mother. Her suicide attempts and her regular bouts of depression didn't keep the relationship really stable or balanced. And so when she took her life during a very, very critical time of development for me, it threw me into this angry and sad feeling of not being good enough that she held on. She didn't hold on to stay. So because of this, I was really careful about attaching to people and letting them get close to me. That was a fear in itself. No one actually likes the idea of loving someone and being left or rejected, right? And with that came a fear of hurting others as well. So I was terrified of hurting other people's feelings and setting them up for disappointment if they got too close to me, because ultimately I would likely push them away to keep us both protected from getting hurt. I mean, I see it now for what it is. For a long time, I saw none of it. And so those underlying fears of rejection for me, based on, my past, were leading me to avoiding conflict or anything I perceived as conflict. I just wanted people to like me, so I didn't want to upset them or piss them off either. Do no harm. That was my mantra. And keep your mouth shut if you think someone will get hurt, including myself. I did notice, however, that if I was comfortable with someone or did not feel threatened in the relationship, it was much easier for me to share what I really felt and present it in such a way that I thought was beneficial. So as a professional counselor, this is clearly a very important skill. If I don't share what is being presented to me, I'm not really helping anyone. But again, translating this to my personal life was way more challenging. The risks felt much higher. It wasn't until I found myself in this pattern of passive-aggressive behavior on repeat, as well as feeling like I was chronically being taken advantage of, that I began to start speaking up more. I looked at my fears of sharing my true thoughts and worked through the risk versus reward of standing up for myself and creating stronger boundaries that felt good and right for me, as well as my fear of not being good enough and questioning if I actually deserve to be treated well. So I'm assuming you can relate to some of this, since you, like everyone else, work through this fear of not being good enough. You become fearful that someone will discover the truth of your imperfections. And then what will happen if you're discovered? Worst case scenario is that you become normal, like the rest of us imperfect beings who are also trying to figure it out. Or maybe your fear, like mine, is hurting other people. If you share what you think, it may feed the part of not feeling their part, actually, of not feeling good enough, despite that will never be your intent. So once you identify your fear and what is holding you back, you can address it directly to move through it. Some of the questions I ask myself when debating what to share is, what is my intent on expressing my truth in this situation? Is it out of fear, out of protection, or simply to communicate more effectively in a balanced way? I let my intent guide me. If I'm afraid of rejection, I will ask myself, what's the worst possible outcome here? What if I am rejected? What if someone doesn't like me? How is that going to change my life and my course in it? Am I comfortable enough with myself to accept that not everyone will like me, or they're not going to accept my decisions and the way I feel or choose to live my life? So these are big questions, right? And we have to sort of get comfortable with the answers in those so we know what it is that's holding us back. We've been looking at the resistance of why you are not comfortable in sharing what you really feel. And now that you hopefully have a sense as to what it is you're afraid of, let's look at the benefits of when you do speak assertively, respectfully, and truthfully, because they are huge. One big benefit is people trust you. When they feel you're being honest with them, they don't have to guess or fear what you're thinking, and they respect you more. So much so that they listen more intently to what you have to say, and they value it. And I don't know about you, but there is something really personally rewarding to me when I know I am trusted. I feel honored when people share themselves openly with me because I know that they trust what they will receive. And that feels really good. It also inspires me to keep going and be even more vulnerable and honest as well. Another benefit is that the words taste good as they are coming out of your mouth. We've all told lies before, and we know what that feels like. And personally, I do not like the taste of false words coming out of my mouth. The sourness makes me cringe and feel uneasy. Honesty has a flavor that keeps you coming back for more. it just feels so much better. And one of my very favorite benefits is simply because it feels good. When you know you are being honest and authentic to who you are, you feel relieved that you are not hiding yourself or that you don't need to hide yourself, and you become more confident in sharing your views with less worry of the outcome. You begin to gain real trust and respect in yourself and like yourself even more. I mean, that's a pretty fantastic outcome in itself. So when you have nothing to hide, you are living with a sense of freedom and focus that is invaluable. I cannot think of a better reason to be who you are and enjoy doing so. I just love this practice of speaking up and being who you are because it just feels so good. So those are our reasons, those are our whys and our why nots. And that's what we're looking at now. And I'm excited for you to start practicing speaking up and speaking your truth for you. And for more techniques and practices on living serendipitously and with joy, as well as great self-awareness activities, check out 30 Days to Me on livingwithserendipity.com and sacredstoriesmedia.com. Kudos to you for taking the first steps to speaking your truth and living more authentically. And thank you from the rest of us, because the more you live as you, the more you inspire us to do the same. Thank you so much for joining me today and practicing the whys and hows of speaking your truth. And I will catch you next time on Living Serendipitously with Lynn Reilly.